Happy Wednesday night, everybody, and welcome to Deep in the Plus. This is the show where we go deep into the Disney Plus catalog. We find a movie or TV show to talk about, and tonight we are talking about Rookie of the Year. And to talk about Rookie of the Year, we brought on a rookie of our own. It's Stephanie. How are you, Stephanie?
Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play.
That's John Fogerty. That is not this. If you have not already, please subscribe to WDWNT TV for more great content. And also, please make sure to give this video a like. We want people to find it because we're going to be talking about this movie. Stephanie, when I asked, hey, what do you guys want to talk about on Deep in the Plus? You were like, boom, Rookie of the Year. We got opening day coming up. I want to talk about Rookie of the Year. You have an affinity for baseball. You got some minor leaguers in your house. And you were like, let's talk about this. And we were like, great. We had it queued up. We were ready to go. And then I was like, knock, knock, knock. Guess what? It's not on Disney Plus. That's our only rule. It's our only rule. And we couldn't break our only rule. And then when it popped up again, I was just like, this is it. We got to do it. We got to talk about it. So tell me why you like this movie.
Yeah, it got knocked back down to the minors and called back up again to the big show.
Mm.
So here we are tonight. Let's see how many baseball puns I can put into this episode. We'll find out. I really love it because it was one of those movies. I grew up with two brothers in the house. We all played sports. I played softball, they played baseball, and my dad was a big baseball fan. And so I think we just grew up around it. And at the time it came out, this is 1993, I was a couple of years younger than the main character. And, probably had a little crush on him. He was cute, and it was one of those fantasy things like, what if this really could happen where the kid goes to the major leagues? That would be amazing.
Well, we're definitely going to talk a little bit about Thomas Ian Nicholas in a bit, including the fact of like what he's looking like these days and his band that he's got going on. He's
A
43
little
years old
different.
now. Yeah, and he's looking a little bit different, but some people have already referenced American Pie. He was in American Pie, and some other stuff. So we'll talk all about that. Um, so you maybe may or may not have had a crush on him. There may or may not have been like a Tiger Beat magazine with his picture on it under your
Sure.
pillow. Got it. Okay. You know what? Baseball, America's pastime. This is, it's fun to talk about this kind of stuff. But again, when we went to talk about this, I was scraping Disney Plus, going, where's Angels in the Outfield? Where's the things we want to talk about? We already did the Sandlot, so we couldn't do that one. I don't think anybody's asking for Sandlot 2 out here. Maybe they are. I don't know. But the Rookie with Dennis Quaid was on there, and that's a little bit serious. We like to have fun on here, so we were waiting for Rookie of the Year. It came on. I got to tell you honestly, I don't think I had ever seen it.
What?
I see a lot of movies. I see a lot of movies, like anything from, Citizen Kane to the Garfield movie. I'll go see them all. I'm just saying, like, somehow this one slipped through the cracks with me. I'm not sure I saw it. But it feels similar. And it was a 20th Century Fox movie when it came out. So we were happy to bring it into the Disney fold when they bought the company for 71 billion or whatever they paid for it. It was really just for this movie and for this moment, Stephanie.
Sure.
That's what this was all about.
Exactly.
But it feels a lot like, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it feels a lot like a typical Disney movie, even though it's not a
No.
Disney movie. It has that, like, almost that magical factor. And the idea of this movie is it's a 12-year-old boy who ends up pitching for the Chicago Cubs. And it's not like he found a medallion or he made a wish on a Zoltar machine or he had a lucky fortune cookie and he swapped with his dad. It's actually, it seems feasible that he fell down. I mean, this is where I'm going with this, so hang on. It seems feasible to me that he falls down, he breaks his arm in such a horrible way that they have to put it in a cast, and then when it comes out of the cast, his joints or his ligaments, or you're going to correct me on that in a second, are so tight that he has such a strong arm all of a sudden that he's basically the world's fastest pitcher, which again, I'm saying it's not a chemical spill with lightning that makes him the Flash, and it's not a computer wore tennis shoe situation. It's really, in my head, very feasible. And as the doctor in the house, tell me why it's not.
Well, first of all, when you're watching the scene where the doctor explains what has actually happened to him when he tripped on the baseball and fell on his arm, he said a radial ulnar fracture, which I think he meant radius because those are the two bones in your forearm. But again, that's in your forearm. That's not the main bone and the humerus in the shoulder joint itself. He said some, various I think rotator cuff damage. He didn't even go into that in detail. Um, I don't know that they would have him with his arm elevated like that in the cast to begin with. At the most, they might just put it at a 90 degree angle here. So I'm not sure why they had to cast it in this direction. But yeah, I think that they've actually asked orthopedics doctors before about this and say, could this actually happen in real life? And everybody unequivocally says no, absolutely not.
Well, and to me again, like I didn't break a bunch of bones as a kid, so the idea that he was going to have to be like this for 3 months
Right.
seems unlikely. But I mean, it was a really bad break, and so they're making jokes about this as he's walking by, and everybody's waving to him and pretending like they're holding their arms up like that, and everybody in class, that's a great gag. Everybody in class
I love
puts
that.
their arms down, but he still has to have his hand up, and the teacher hesitates like on that moment and goes, "Oh, do you have a question? Oh, you don't have a
Call on
question. You have a
you.
broken arm," in the weirdest way. Like it's just yeah, it's kind of crazy. So he breaks his arm. It's in a cast for like 3 minutes. Not even. Like we see the passage of a 3 months of time in this movie, and I'm like, they just skip over it pretty quickly. It is sort of like an 80 late 80s early 90s montage where
Montage.
we're seeing, we see him and his friends, and then we see him at school and his cast gets signed, and then they finally bring it off of his arm, and now he's at the doctor's office, and apparently they just let your best friends come in and like kick around in the doctor's
Right.
office. I guess that's how it works, right? You can just bring
In
in
the
anybody you
90s,
want to.
anything goes. Yes, of
Sure,
course.
sure. And they're like sticking like swabs in each other's faces, and yeah, it looked very likely that that was going to happen.
Happens all the
Um,
time.
yeah. Let me see. I knew you would have those answers. Really, what I have to know is, have you ever been in a situation with a patient where anybody in the room said "funky butt lovin'"?
Not myself personally, no.
Okay, cool, cool,
I've
cool,
heard
cool.
some weird things, but not that in particular.
Yeah, I don't know. I just that one was one of those where like the doctor gets hit in the face and he goes funky butt lovin', and the kids look at each other and go, did he say funky butt lovin'? And I'm like, that's when I'm like, okay, this is a kids movie. It's 1993.
Exactly.
It's like I said, it's sort of a Disney movie. It's not the goofy movie, but it's kind of a goofy movie in the fact that there's a lot of little things that happen in it that I'm like, really? And then I'm like, I'm taking a step back because, again, I've been accused of getting too granular, going too deep into these. And so, but there's the stuff like where, where Daniel Stern, of course, one of the Wet Bandits,
Yes.
famously, he directed this, and this was his
Hmm.
first movie and only movie to date that he's directed.
Oh,
And then he puts himself in as this goofball
Brinkman.
that you don't need him in this movie, except for the fact that if it's a kids movie, he's the goofball, right? I mean, did
Comic
you
relief.
like? Yeah, he's comic relief. Did you love that when you were watching this, or like when you rewatched it, did you go, "Ooh, this feels not good"?
No, I mean it's a little cringy, but now as an adult looking at that, but no, it's nostalgic for me. So I'm like, oh, it's Brinkma, hot ice. That's the first thing that my son quotes to me whenever I said, oh, we're doing Rookie of the Year tonight, and he said, hot ice. So
Well, and then in
I
our
love it.
chat, you dropped this meme in when when we were talking. You're like, let's play some ball where he gets locked into the thing here. Like, but I mean, he has literally like no reason to be in this movie. Like, let's redo this movie. Let's cut it for TV. You could cut this scene, like all of his scenes out, and we would miss nothing except
Yes.
the comic relief, if that's the thing. The other thing that was a little bit like campy was there were a lot of times where Henry, the boy, his character is just going like he's
Yes.
shocked
Mugging
about
for the
something,
camera. Yeah.
and it's a little bit too long. It felt like.
Yes. Yeah, the majority of the time is when he's walking out on the mound. Like, his first. Now, my son mentioned this. He said, "Wait a minute, Mom. He's never taken practice. He's never even taken bullpen or anything, batting practice, nothing with the team. And they put him into the next game. That wouldn't happen in real life. And then they come back and they say, "Wait a minute. Now we have to train the kid." But yes, I think that I agree with you. Those shots were a little bit too long and repetitive for him to be just so stunned and overwhelmed. But that's why, because they stuck him into a major league game without training him.
Yeah.
There he is.
Right? I mean, come
Yes.
on.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree. I agree with your son. It's one of those where you're like, okay, they didn't even have, because I feel like even the movie Major League, which I'm sure you've seen. I assume
Hmm.
you've seen every single solitary baseball movie.
Almost.
I'm gonna assume that.
Probably.
So, yeah, but in Major League, like even then, when they're training, um, Charlie Sheen's character, like they're training, like they're like doing practices, and then this one it's
Hmm.
just like, nah, let's put the kid in, and everybody in Chicago has bought their ticket to come see him. They went from like no one's going, literally cricket's minor league baseball would be embarrassed by this, to a full stadium at the whisper that this kid might be able to throw a baseball, a football. I don't know why I said that, a baseball, and so like yeah, it's pretty crazy that that they wouldn't do the practicing. And again, here's the thing: there are some things in here I think you could have gotten rid of. The boys and the boat building subplot totally could have gotten rid of that. And if you got rid of
Yeah.
that, maybe we could have seen some warm up for Henry getting ready, and like he could have earned this moment. Is I guess where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
He could have earned this moment a little bit better.
I agree with that, but I think the boat building subplot actually is what makes it more of a Disney movie because you have this wonderful life lesson at the end that kids just need to be kids. They don't need to grow up too fast. They don't need to be put into situations that are adult and not they're not ready for. And he needs to have fun with his friends, and he needs to friends come before bros before everything else, right?
Yeah.
Put that in. But then you also have the cute little crush on the girl and how to talk to girls. And I think as a soon to be middle schooler, as this was coming out for me, and I was watching it, and I was like, okay, well that makes sense because that's kind of where you are in life, fourth, fifth grade. Have starting to have your crush on whoever.
Are you saying that's a coming of age movie?
Exactly. That's exactly
I
right.
I mean, there are some things that I really appreciate about them putting back into perspective of this as a kid. The one where they do the training and he's throwing at 100 miles an hour and they're like, "Hey kid, how would you like to be a Chicago Cub?" And he's like, "Great, let me ask my mom."
Yeah.
Great. Like, yes, that's exactly what a kid would do. And then the
Yes.
part where they're going to the stadium for the first time, which again, like you said, it was just like, hey, show up at the stadium tomorrow and you're going to play a professional baseball game. Uh,
Yes.
but when they show up and he's like, Mom, the other Cubs players' moms aren't going to bring that, like, come in. And then she's like, okay.
Hmm.
But before this, let me ask you this as a mom. Were you triggered at all when backing up, the way that he got into this situation was they got him out of his cast, and as a getting out of your cast gift, his mom gave him 3 tickets, one for each of the boys, to go see a Cubs game. The boys just go to the game. As a mom, does this give you hives? The idea of just randomly sending 12-year-olds to a an inner city baseball game?
Yes, nowadays for sure. We have a minor league. I don't even know what it's called, what league it is, but it's a hockey team here in Louisiana, and it's called the Mudbugs, and people absolutely love it. And so this would be our equivalent to this. My kids go with their friends and they sit in a section apart from the parents, but the parents are there in case of anything that happens. But yes, that is kind of that little bit of freedom that you get as a 12-year-old, as a 13-year-old. You're kind of pushing the boundary there. But You're still within range if you need be.
Mom, stop. Um, so here's the thing. There is a moment, and I don't know if this moment resonated with you or not when they're about to go the into the Cubs into Wrigley Field. When they're about to go in, there's a wall which I don't know if it's actually there or not. I'm not really like into Chicago lore, but there's a wall of doors, and the boys stand at the door, and it's so the Wizard of Oz.
It
They're
absolutely is. And
stand.
I actually was going to ask you, is that the same actor?
I wondered because he looks like he's got that age to him that he might be the guy, but it's like just
Yes.
like Oz. It's like go away, and then he's like, oh, you're here for what? Oh, well, we've been waiting for you, and then they open the gates, and
Horse of
it's
a different color.
yeah, exactly. So the fun little moment there, and yeah, I wondered the same thing too. I did not do that research, so I'm sure somebody can tell me that. Yep, that's actually what happened. But this is the moment that we see in so many of these things where the star, whether it be like Dexter Riley in all of the Dexter Riley trilogy movies, he gets the big head, and
Hmm.
then the kids that are his friends are like, "Oh, you've changed," whereas they were riding high for a while on this. This is the first time when he goes in where the friends can't go in with him. But like they've got to love the fact that he's their friend. But then, George gets all upset because he's not out there building the boat, and then they get into a fight. I really thought, because again, I hadn't seen this movie, that George in that fight was going to break his arm, and he was going to like
Oh,
reverse the whole thing.
foreshadowing, maybe.
Maybe. Let's talk about cast for a second because again,
Hmm.
we'll get to your crush in a minute. But like Gary Busey, when Gary Busey looked like a human being, like
Right?
yeah,
Back
like
when Gary Busey was pretty, yeah, he looked like he could be a major league ball player. He's a big guy.
yeah. I mean, again, like when I saw that, I was like, that moment of seeing him, it's like, oh yeah, that's right, he was normal because now he's so abnormal that you just,
Hmm.
yeah, it's scary.
Don't recognize
Also,
him.
Neil, I can't remember his last name, who played janitor on Scrubs and also
Yes.
was on
The middle.
the Middle, the TV show The Middle. He was the
Hmm.
dad. Is in this as just a hunk.
Super young.
He's just the whole
Probably
package
his
in this
first.
one. I mean, like, I feel like today we would see actual baseball players or actual athletes, but in this one, like, I think they did a
Yeah.
pretty good job of these guys coming off as, as
And you
real.
do get a cameo of, I think, Barry Bonds later on.
Oh yeah, yeah, there is one.
Hmm.
But then again, there's this. There's the Daniel Stern with like choking on the chew, and
Yes.
yeah, again,
Yes.
he's the director, folks. He's
Oh.
the director, and he chose
But
this
he
for
was coming.
himself.
But he was coming off of, like you said, Home Alone, Home
Home
Alone
Alone,
2, and City
City
Slickers,
Slickers.
right?
Mm,
Didn't City Slickers do before? So yeah, I
yeah,
think that this was funny that he chose this.
yeah. He was actually, it was right in between City Slickers and City Slickers too. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, he was very normal, I guess, by his standards in that. He was the voiceover on the Wonder Years, Daniel Stern was, and then he also
Okay.
directed a couple episodes of that, and he's got like six directing um, credits. So, by the way, uh, as I'm watching this scene, there was this scene where I was like, what are they trying to tell us here?
He
Wh-
was embarrassed that he's so little. These guys are massive. He can fit inside the locker. They have to stand outside the lockers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they made it seem like for a clinical term, a manhood issue for a second here,
Hmm.
which again doesn't seem like it fits into a 12-year-old boy situation there, but I don't know.
I've never been a 12-year-old boy, so I can't say.
Okay. Um, let's talk about the fact that, and I'll come back to the cast in a second, but because I have this up here, let's talk about the fact that this was in the 90s, like the clothing of the people who are
Oh, it
yeah,
looks like it could be today.
does it?
Right? The
Uh,
90s
ah,
well, the 90s fashion's back in style. You know, you've got the neon and you've got the baggy pants and things like that coming back.
I feel like Disney with their 2024 merchandise tried to bring back the 90s style, but
Yes.
I'm not buying it yet. I'm not bought in. But some of like the short shorts and some of the materials of the clothing just definitely felt like throwback. Although it feels like not so long ago, but this movie was what 31 years ago that this happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So um, so more cast. John Candy is in here as the announcer, and he's not credited in the beginning. At least I don't think he's not credited
You're right.
as being the announcer in here. So, and he's a big deal in this, and he was a big deal at the time. So, um,
That's because they weren't originally, that wasn't a role originally, and they added him later. I think that's why he didn't have the opening credit.
well, I think he helped to make the movie. There were a couple times that
Yes.
felt like he sort of was like maybe ad libbing, like the part where it's like, "This is for all the marbles. This is the, you know,
Kit and Caboodle.
the kitten, a whole kitten caboodle." Exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
he really did. I agree. I think he was perfect for that part. And I don't know where this aligns in his whole catalog there, but I think that he was really great. And he wasn't angry like in Major League, the announcers are drunk or angry or something like that. And he played it very straight, but he was also kind of like, okay, these guys suck. These guys are not going to do well, and betting against them the whole time until the end. So I really liked it. I thought it was a good part.
yeah. The other thing about this cast, though, is that I kept feeling like everybody in here is somebody I knew from something, and some of them weren't. Like
Yes.
the kid that played George, I thought was the kid from Big, but he wasn't. That's somebody else who was like the best
Oh,
friend in Big, but
okay.
he looked like him. And the
Yes,
guy
he
who
does.
played the big, like menacing baseball player that was like, "Remember me, kid?" I thought he was from Revenge of the Nerds, but he wasn't. Like, so there were a
Oh.
lot of people. It was like kind of a who's who of who's that, and they weren't who I thought they were. Um, but you got Dan Hedaya, I think is his name, on the I guess left there, who is he played Carla's husband on Cheers. That's what I remember. Also, I like that he's tucked his tie into
Right.
his pants.
Right.
And then this, but the guy on the far right, do you recognize him? The guy who's the who was the owner of the team.
I definitely do, but I don't know any other what movie has he
Uh,
been in.
his name is Eddie Bracken,
Hmm.
and he was in Vacation,
Oh,
the National Lampoon's Vacation movie,
yeah.
and he played
As he Walt? Did he play Walt? Or
he
the
was
the
yeah,
version of Walt?
he was the version of Walt. It was
Oh
Mr. Wally.
yes.
Yeah,
Oh
Roy,
yes.
Roy Wally. Yeah,
Roy Foley.
because I was like, as I'm watching him, I'm going, I remember him, but I feel like he
Mhm.
had a mustache when I saw
He
him,
did.
and that was
Yes.
yeah. But he was very similar, almost like this bumbling. Well, I did. Well, what?
Mhm.
Just kind of like, how much is a hot dog? $3. What? That's crazy. Like it just felt like the same sort of a thing. But he had quite the long IMDb. But I just was like, why do I know him? And I'm like, oh yeah, he was Roy Wally. So
That's so great.
uh, yeah. And then the guy who plays his sleazy, I guess he's not even. See, that's the thing. He's only been dating mom for 3 weeks, and now he's like acting
Hmm.
like the stepdad and being manager and getting money hungry. And he's certainly a good villain in this, right? Um,
Yes. I kind of feel like he's almost a Hans character that you think is a good guy, and then he kind of turns out to be the bad guy in the end.
yeah, that would that would track well. So that is Bruce Altman, but I don't know that he could play a nice guy. He looked creepy from the second he walked into the thing, much less them
Yes.
shoving him into the Miata, which again, very
Right.
1993. I remember somebody telling me once that Miatas, and no offense to anybody out there, that Miatas were for little girls and old men. That's what I heard that when they came out, that they were for little girls and for old men. Because I was like,
Absolutely.
I love convertibles. How about a nope? Can't have a Miata.
Nope.
Um, I mean, I can now.
Yeah, that was a great gag. Yeah. No.
Oh, wah. Uh, so then let's talk about your boy. Let's talk about Thomas Ian uh, Nicholas, who, by the way, again, I don't know if I've mentioned this or not, but aside from having amazing hair at 43, has a band. So you could check him out. It's called Tin Band because Thomas Ian Nicholas.
Oh.
It's the Tin Band,
Ah.
the Thomas Nicholas
Okay.
Band. They're touring Europe now. If you happen to be watching us from Europe, you might want to
Oh.
swing by and catch him live. That would be a cool thing. The thing about him though is 2 years after this, 2 years in 1995, he was in Disney's A Kid in King Arthur's Court, also as a
Yes.
baseball player. What?
Also in
Typecasting,
there.
hello?
Yep.
And we're watching, and my daughter goes, she says, does he just really like wearing baseball uniforms? Is that the situation? Like, why is he doing that?
He must be the
So,
epitome of the little leaguer. But guess who else is in that movie? Kate Winslet.
do you love Kate Winslet?
I do like Kate Winslet. Yes, who doesn't? But
Okay.
I never knew that she was in that movie till we started watching it the other day. And my kids were like, "Oh, she's pretty." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is before Titanic."
Wait, so you were watching A Kid in King Arthur's Court? Oh, are we going to review
Yes.
that one later? That would be fun. I mean, it's on
Maybe
there.
so.
It's on there. I can tell how
More
excited you
baseball.
are about
I
this.
don't like this.
Yeah.
It's not as
So,
good. Exactly. It's not as good
yeah.
as this one.
Well, the other thing that Thomas Ian Nicholas was in is he was Walt in this movie that was made called Walt Before Mickey. So he
Oh.
played Walt in this one, Walt Before Mickey. And then, like I mentioned before, he was Kevin in the American Pie movies. Um,
Right.
so, yeah. There you have it. That's Thomas Ian Nicholas, and again, sometime I'd love to see all the pictures and posters that were on your wall when you were younger, if you still have them. But he's still working. He's still like aside from the band, he's got a show that was just picked up for Tubi called Underdeveloped, which was 6 episodes. So, again, he's still working.
Okay.
Don't cry for
Good
him.
for him.
Yeah, and then again, maybe we'll do that someday. So, before we go any further into this movie, I do want to say again, thanks to everyone who's watching with us. We appreciate you coming out and hanging out with us on a Wednesday night, especially. And I mean, we're having fun. It's baseball season, and we're talking about our kid in King Arthur's. No, we're not talking about that. We'll talk about that next time. We're talking about Rookie of the Year, and because you picked this movie, I assume you'd be up for a little bit of trivia.
Let's try. Let's do it. I'll hit it out of the
Uh,
park. Let's go.
Oh, did you write all these down? These are a lot of good ones. Okay. So
You're gonna throw
when
something to me out of left field. I know.
I just hope you don't strike out. So on the
Oh,
when this movie opens up, it is opening day at the Cubs Stadium at Wrigley Field. It is opening day. When they are opening their season, what team do they play in their opening?
what team did they play in the opening? Well, okay. If you had asked me what their big rival team is, I could have told you the New York Mets. But the big rival team. What team do they play? I don't know. Let's go with the Mets again.
I am sorry, it is not the Mets. It was the Giants, the San Francisco Giants. Here's one that actually may be a little bit easier for you. In this montage of showing us that it's baseball season, that it's Chicago, that it's the big game, the Cubs kind of suck right now, which was a thing for a long time anyway. And we cut to Henry pretending to catch a ball, and he's wearing the uniform of his little league team. What is his little league team's name?
Pirates.
That is correct. There you go. See how easy
One
that
and
was?
one. One and one.
Yeah, yeah. And what number was Henry on the Pirates?
Oh crap. Well, he was one on the.
He was one on the cover.
He was on a Cub. Yes. What number was he on the Pirates? I don't know. What number was he?
17.
Okay. Shoot.
Okay.
Swing and a
Um,
miss.
yes. He shows up late for practice, and he did not know that showing up late for practice would get you a fine. How much was the fine?
$500.
And how many months would it take him to make that back in allowance?
6 months.
That is correct. Look at you. See, look at that. You're really good at this. When the team takes, I think it was like his third game, it seems like, and again, passage of time is irrelevant, but it's his first away game, which his mom doesn't go to. Like, if you've got a 12-year-old kid,
That was
wouldn't
weird.
you take the mom? I feel like you would take the
Yes,
mom.
and Brinkma was his like adjoining room, so I definitely would have had mom stay in the room with him.
Yeah, that seems like a thing they should have done. So, when they fly to L.A. for his first away game, they fly commercial. What airline? I
I'm
mean,
going
who
to
knew the Cubs
go
flew commercial?
with.
I would have thought they had a private plane, honestly.
Thank you. I don't remember, so I'm going to throw out United.
That is a heck of a guess because it is correct. It is one that still exists. It is United, yes. It is not Eastern, the official airline of Walt Disney World. No, it is not that one. Remember that? Remember Eastern?
No,
The- What? You don't remember Eastern Airlines?
no,
Jeez.
not here in
Okay.
Louisiana for sure.
Wow. All right. Oh, awkward. Um, this is the last question that I have for you.
Uh-oh.
And I feel like you could get it or
Arkin.
not.
Right.
John Candy is the announcer. He makes a big point of saying what the date is of the day that Henry pitches for the first time. He makes a big point of saying this is the first day. What is the date?
I don't know it. May 31st.
I'm sorry, May 31st? Okay,
I
let's go
don't
through the timeline again. He breaks his arm. He's not going to be able to get the cast off until August. It's August
know.
11th. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got for you. There were a couple other things I was going to say, like what radio station did he tune into when they were in the limousine, and a couple weird things like that. But it was 102.7, I think. For
Oh,
some reason,
okay.
they just showed the dial up close. It was a digital display, and they showed it up close. That's the thing that drives me about some of these trivia questions that I come up with. It's because they seem to linger. Like the United Airlines, there
Mm.
was no reason to show us the outside of that plane landing. There really wasn't. It was just B-roll footage of a United airline, landing in 1993. Don't know why. But again, you could have given me 8 seconds of my life back by not showing me that it was a United Airlines.
Was it
But
product placement?
if there was one product placement in here, what would you say it was?
Pepsi.
Right. I was going to say they could not have been more into the whole idea of Pepsi. It's the
Hmm.
choice of a new generation. Um,
But
I've
why
got
did they
some
have to make him Ray Charles? That's the problem.
I've
Because
got
he's
thoughts on
12.
that. I want to talk. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. It
Okay.
seemed creepy, right?
Hmm. Yes.
Like
I
he
mean,
he
at the
gets
time, if I'm 12 and I'm watching this, it's kind of, I'm blowing it over. Like I'm not really paying attention to that. But now, as a mom, and I have a, son about that age, I would be like, absolutely not. What is happening?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird that he is like sitting there and they're
The
cutting
girls.
this commercial for Pepsi, and in it there's a moment where the director says to him, "I need you to be more sexy."
Yes.
And like,
Well,
yes, like
isn't that the Ray Charles, like, I mean, that's a Diet Pepsi, but isn't that the actual commercial? Like, don't you remember that with Ray sitting there and the girls are around, around him?
yeah. Yeah. I know I don't. Could you do it a little bit more? That would be great. I'm not really sure that that I'm
But
catching
it's
that.
weird with a kid. It's weird.
Well, especially this part where they're like they come over and they're taking his clothes off. They're taking his tie
Yes.
off and putting their arms around him, and she's
Bizarre.
whispering in his ear. He's freaking 12 years old. Why is this happening? And I get it. I get what you're saying. Like it's a kids movie and maybe it's exciting for kids to see this, but I'm like it's creepy. In
It's creepy.
2024, looking back on this, it's creepy. And it's just
Yeah.
like and the director says to him, "Could you make it more sexy?" And it's like, "Okay, well
Right.
mom wasn't there." Well, wait a minute. Mom was
She
there.
was.
She was
Yes.
she was there for the whole thing and
She's
just
not
like
liking it for sure.
but she was more like seemed like she was tired. I actually thought Ray Charles was going to be make I was excited. I thought he was going to make a cameo in this, but it was just his
That would have been
voiceover
better.
that they were singing to, and it would have been really cool if it was a Ray Charles cameo. Although would
Hmm.
kids in 1993 have been impressed by Ray Charles? I don't know.
I mean, impressed, maybe not, but that is the commercial that was playing at the time. Like that was, I think that was around that same time frame, wasn't it? That people were familiar
Oh
with
yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, I would agree that that's the case. And probably seeing it in a movie was a big deal for you at the time. Also at the time, were you playing Game Boy? You could tell me. Did you have your own?
Absolutely. I still have it somewhere. I kid you not.
I was trying to look. Is that Tetris he's got in there? I feel like it is because it came
It
with
kind
that
of looks
version.
like it was. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, and again, thanks for doing the trivia. I appreciate it. And again, discussing some of the medical terms here. We are going deep here, but let me back up a second and ask you this: they picked four Angels in the outfield. The Angels, the California slash Anaheim Angels, they picked them
Hmm.
as that team, and it made sense because at the time Disney owned the Angels. This is 20th Century Fox. I know this is not Disney, but it made sense. It was a good tie-in. Unless this is a true story, which I don't remember hearing that this was a true story at the time. I mean, it could have been, but it wasn't because the Cubs didn't win the World Series back then. Um,
Hmm.
I'm wondering from your point of view, because you have some familiarity with baseball. Why do you think they picked the Cubs?
I think that they like an underdog. And like you said, I think that, the Cubs weren't doing well for a long period of time. And same with Major League and the Indians and, these clubs, these teams that, have a definite fan base, but are not the White Sox. They're not the Yankees. They're not the Red Sox. These Atlanta Braves. Like throw out some major league teams that you're like, oh, they win everything. So I think that that's why, because they like an underdog, and they could potentially, with the right staffing and everything, Moneyball here, like put in a good team, and they could maybe come up and play in the majors and
Was
in
Moneyball
the.
the A's?
I think so. I
Yeah.
don't remember, but yeah, I
But
think so.
that was based on a true story. And again, this could be based on a
Yes.
true story. I don't remember reading the headlines of a 12-year-old pitching for the Cubs. But there's a lot of things that I look at this and I wonder were were there rules in the Major League Baseball about some of the things like him pitching underhanded at the end? Like, is that a
Right.
thing that you're
Yes.
allowed to do in MLB, or is it just not done because anybody could hit a floater except for this dude?
It's a slow pitch softball move, and I don't know. It's definitely off speed.
Yeah. So I mean, it just felt weird. Like, yeah.
Hmm.
So there's a
I
lot
do
of
like the.
night.
I do like. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go.
I do like the ball tricks though. I think those are legal actually. I think you can do the ball trick, and the hidden ball and the one with the rosin bag where he throws it up and they think he threw it fast. I really like that. I think that was very clever, and I think it was a clever way to kind of wrap up and tie that into the end of the movie.
Okay. So there was a lot of 90s stuff in this.
Yes.
How about this phone? Did you have this phone growing up? I feel like everybody
No.
had this cordless phone at some point or some facsimile
A
of it
version of.
with the
Yes, correct.
antenna and the whole deal. This guy just let's break it down a little bit. That shirt, is that like a paisley? That's
That's
definitely a
it's
90s
probably
shirt.
rayon.
He's got the pinky ring going on, the hairdo,
Yes.
good Lord and butter, and then also like the heavy into to the jewelry in general. I don't know,
For
but
sure. Mhm.
it's like a page out of the 1990s playbook. But some of the stuff in here
Yeah.
does look like it could be any time. But some
Mhm.
of it again looks very very much
Yeah, his
in
wardrobe
that.
was definitely Fresh Prince of Bel-Air kind of.
Yeah. Let's talk about mom. This is a good, strong female character for this
I
movie.
agree.
She, except for the fact that she let him fly to L.A. by himself when he was 12,
Right.
and sent him to the Cubs game by himself. Now I'm starting to backtrack. I'm starting to lose the thread. And sat there while he was groped by three girls. Like,
Yes.
I mean, but
Yeah,
in general,
questionable.
I feel like she's a single mom. She's sticking up for her son. She's encouraging, but
Mhm.
she's not like patronizing. And she's
Yes.
always there to protect him. So we like
Absolutely.
her.
And yeah, I love her. And she's trying to be very involved in his life as well as trying to provide for him. You see her, my mom actually had one of those little televisions that look like a little box. And you see her at her office, with the florist and cheering him on during one of his games. And absolutely, I think that she was, she did her best. She had maybe poor choice in men, but other than that,
Yeah, cheering him on from afar while she's not with him as he's
right.
yeah, as he's been, as he's in Los Angeles by himself. Although I did see the little TV that you were talking about there, but yeah, it's a little weird.
Yeah.
Um so yeah. Dawn was saying in the chat the Sox were underdogs back then too. And then she said I had a lot of heartbreak prior to 2004. Yeah, I mean I'm a Nats fan, and there were so many years where they were awesome during the entire season. They got to the postseason, they were like, "Whoops, we suck."
Cincinnati Reds. I mean, it's a lot of
Yeah,
heartbreak in our house.
yeah. Well, nothing's worse than being a Commanders fan for heartbreak. Anyway, um, but when it comes to baseball, again, I just thought that was interesting. Like, if it was the Yankees, like you said, underdog. If it was the Yankees, you would this movie have worked?
No. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe the kid being on his team part, but like, yeah, you're rooting for the whole team at that point, and they're listening to him in the dugout. He's like, "My arm's gone, but listen, I have a plan." And they're like, "Yeah, let's rally around the 12-year-old."
Let's rally around the 12-year-old who has a plan. I would be like, I don't know. What does that say about the coach, by the way, or the manager?
Yeah.
What does that say about
Yeah,
him
he
that he's
didn't.
like, I'm just going to let the 12-year-old do this because he seems like he's got this under control. It's just for, for all the
Yes.
marbles, for the whole
Yeah,
kit and caboodle.
he wasn't doing much of the managing at that point. He was just kind of like, it's out of my hands, out of control at this point.
Yeah. But you know what? That's again another thing is like they showed him being a kid. As a kid who was playing baseball, he probably would have done the nanny nanny boo boo at front or at first base, trying to like antagonize the pitcher and the like that kind of thing. So I love that they show him in that mode and that people are like, this kid, and it's like, wait a minute, think about what you just said. This kid, he's a freaking 12-year-old.
Yes,
Obviously,
it's
there's,
very little league.
yeah, he's going to be like that. But in the same way that sometimes a college player coming to the pros can bring some stuff that, that maybe worked, in college that, the pros have let go of since then. The little tricks at the end, which you were talking about, where he's like, my arm's shot, and they're like, come on kid, throw the heat. He's like, I can't. And he's like, come on guys, come here, quick, quick, come here. And the
Yeah,
manager doesn't even show up for this meeting, by the way. Everybody pulls
right.
in, and then he's like, here are the things. And then we're talking about, and maybe this is why the Mets still aren't great. This guy falling for the tricks. Oops.
Maybe so.
Like, he's like, what are
I
you doing,
dare you.
kid? Yeah, what are you doing? But it's that Statue of Liberty play. It's those weird plays, and I don't know. It's again, it seems like you're giving this kid way too much rope. It's already one thing if he can throw, but like,
Right. But
you
as a
know.
kid watching the movie, you're going, "Wow, that's great," because they're rallying around him. He's very smart. He's coming up with these plays, these tricks, and he's being silly. And there you go. There's the coach going, "What is this? What is this?" But it
But he
works.
doesn't
It
step
works,
in.
and it works at the end. No, he doesn't. He doesn't interfere.
I gotta tell you again, not having seen this,
Hmm.
I have a tendency to do this, and maybe you don't. When I'm watching a movie that I haven't seen or a TV show, and I'm trying to wrap my head already around how is this going to end? How is this going to play out? And so I'll pause it and look to see how much time's left. And then I can almost go, okay, this is probably how this is going to work. But he falls with the most foreshadowing ever with them showing that ball. He falls on that ball, jumps 20 feet in the air, and falls down on the same arm. Um,
Yeah.
he falls on that ball, and I pause. I'm like, there's 20 minutes left in this movie. What are they gonna do? Like it's not just he falls in the ball and something happens and he karate kids it with the crane move and makes it work and or he fouls out or ends it and comes in second and if you're not first you're last. There could have been a million things that happened if we were looking at 5 minutes, but 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, there's more story here, and that's when he's like, guys, come here. I've got a plan. Not just one plan, but three very specific plans to get this
Uh-huh.
guy out. But he gets right up there to the end and he's trying to figure out how to get that last strike. And he looks out at mom and he looks down at that glove and he pulls off the tape and it says Mary. And it's like,
It was Mom all
it was
along.
mom all along. It was Agatha all along. How do we feel
That's
about that?
right. No, I think it's very sweet because again, it's kind of showing her support of him this whole time. She was letting him, and she was actually, saying this is your dad was a ball player, he was a pitcher, and that kind of thing, trying to give him this role model that he didn't have growing up because he had a rotten dad that left him. He didn't have that role model. And so when he found out it was her, and back in the when they were leaving to go to their away game, Brinkman shot, had said, "Throw it to me," and she threw it, and he said, "I haven't seen that floater pitch since Stinky McGee," or whatever he said. And so, okay, maybe that was a little foreshadowing too. And so that's when he knew, when he pulled that name off and he knew it was her. That's what I need to do.
Yeah. Dawn's in chat. Pitcher got a big butt. Okay.
Yes. Could you imagine?
Uh, yeah.
And he turned and he looked at his butt. Did you notice that?
Yeah. Edo3 says Chicago Cubs were known by everyone due to WGN being broadcasting them nationally. You know who else would have been a good fit?
Very good point.
Would have been the Braves.
Yes,
Although
very true.
maybe controversial because of the name. Were we controversial about the name in 1993? Okay. All
No,
right. Just checking.
no controversy.
Yeah.
Tomahawk
Okay.
chop all the way.
Mm. Anyway, so yeah, you know what? And again, he goes out on his own terms, right? He's his
Hmm.
evil not stepdad slash manager slash why did
Manager.
mom let him take 10% of millions of dollars anyway? Like
Yeah.
he sells him to the New York Yankees and then which again that's putting the New York Yankees in like the villain stage, right? Oh, those mean old villain Yankees are going to take him away from the good Cubs. So that's going down, and he's like, you know what, mom? I just want to be a regular kid now. And this was before he lost his arm and his strength. So it's not that he had to. He went out on his own terms, which I think
Right.
makes there less drama in this, which again puts it back in the realm of a kids movie, a family movie, a movie for kids because there's not like high stakes ever. It's not like
Right.
if he doesn't do this, like in so many Disney Channel movies, if he doesn't do this, they won't save the family business. Or,
Yeah.
they're not destitute. They're never talking about mom not being able to pay the bills. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
she's a successful single mom and
Hmm.
he's got friends. And even that alienation part I was talking about never really happens to a high degree of like,
Right.
getting too big for his head or too big a head for his friends. There's that one wrestling tussle, and then the next time he sees George, George's like, "Ah, you coming? Let's go." Um, I feel like it was very well written to keep the stakes
Yes.
low, and then at the very end, the fact that he's back with his old team in the same way that they were before. He's wearing his jeans and he's got his jersey and he's back at number 17 and Gary Busey's coaching the team. Man, can you imagine if you heard today that Gary Busey was coaching a little league team? Can you imagine if you heard that today how much like
No.
stress you would have about that?
Bad news bears. I mean, yeah, I think Gary Busey as Gary Busey, but not as Chet Stedman. Like, yeah, I mean, you got a major league washed up maybe, but a former major league player coaching your little league team. Heck yeah, every mother is trying to get their kid on that team. Are you kidding me?
Uh, okay, including you.
Well, yes. It's a cutthroat out there.
Okay,
Travel ball, everything. Yeah.
nice. And so here's what the world champion Chicago Cubs ring looks like. If anybody wanted to know what their 1993 World Series championship ring looked like, it looks like that.
Yes.
But it also seems like, is it a little unfair that the kid that played in the major leagues is now back at Little League? That seems like, uh, I don't know, like William
He's
the
a ringer.
Refrigerator Perry playing against your kids in football.
Little boy. Yeah, no, I think that because he lost his superpower, he's back on level. Now maybe because of his training, you could argue that fact. Like, he had some major league training going on, but no, I think he's back on par with everybody else.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and again, that's the thing too, is that we've set this up that there's not really a sequel. A lot of times in movies like this, at the very end, even though we think they've lost whatever it is, you can go, wait, do they still have a little bit of it? Is that magic still there? Is that, did somebody else pick up the fortune cookie? Are we going to see Freaky Friday too? Like
Right.
what exactly, is happening? But they wrap it up in one nice little, no question about it, no post-credit scenes. It is what it is. An hour and 44 minutes, PG, 1993, family fun, right? Like that's what
Yes.
this was designed to be in general. So, before we get to any our final thoughts on this, anything else we missed in talking about that you wanted to talk about?
Um, no, I think we kind of hit the nail on the head, except for the storyline of the mother and her bad choice in men. But at the end, it's my assumption, and I guess it's implied that she and Chet at the end are a couple. He's there coaching the little league team, and so I just assume that she's also in a relationship with him now.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely got rid of the bad guy, so
Hmm.
the villain. And again, there's not a lot of
Yeah,
villain in this. It's just, you know, it's just a thing.
he was greedy.
Um, By the way, when I finished this movie, it recommended Mickey Mouse Clubhouse to me. There's the algorithm at work.
I'm telling you, I think
What?
you're on my profile for the
I'm just like
two-year-old.
I'm just like seriously? That's a thing? By the way, so now that they've merged, before we go in any further, I have to ask you one question. What is your um what is your Disney Plus icon?
It's Mickey.
Is it? Are there more than one Mickey? I can't remember because like in the My Disney Experience, there's Mickey and then there's like Sorcerer Mickey,
Hmm. Yeah, I
but I
don't
can't.
remember what the choices are, but it's the new Mickey that Desi always says, "Not my Mickey."
Oh,
It's
right,
that
like the
Mickey.
Mickey,
Yeah.
yeah, the new Mickey cartoons, the new Mickey Mouse.
Hmm.
Yeah, mine's
Yeah.
Oswald. When they added Oswald, I threw that one
Oh,
in there. But before that, it was Mickey because I usually go OG on stuff like that.
there you
Um,
go.
yeah. So the other thing is that as we're reviewing some of these movies, they've merged Hulu together. How do you feel about the merger?
Yes.
How do you feel about the merger of Hulu and Disney Plus together?
So I like to be able to see my preferences and my picks and that kind of thing on Hulu as well. But then they don't have everything. And so it kind of annoys me. Like I was wanting to watch Only Murders in the Building the other night, and that's not on Disney Plus. So then I had to go back to the Hulu app. So then what's the point of having Hulu on my Disney Plus app? Ah,
Well, and also, and I think you and I were talking about it pre-show, is like the tiles aren't very Disney
Yes.
anymore. The Kardashians, the Acolyte, okay, I
Yes.
get that. Like the Beach Boys, yeah, that makes sense. Doctor Who, okay, this one, but like Quiz Lady, no, that's definitely not one that should be
Right.
here. Pauline, I don't think so. Maybe The Simpsons. Under the Bridge, that doesn't look like a thing.
No.
Moana, the fact the trailer's on there is a
Yeah.
thing. Camden, this looks like, Dua Lipa is in this, I guess. This is a thing.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. But one of the things that I definitely am looking at and I think somebody asked me this before, Deep in the Plus, is now that they've merged together, would we be doing more reviews of things on Hulu? There's a thing that I'm looking
Mm.
for to make sure it's not there. And if you look down here under the play button, it says included with your Hulu subscription. So if
Aha.
I see that, I'm not going to do it. So I was flipping through here
Mhm.
and I found one of these things that I was like, wait a minute, I would love to review that. As a matter of fact, um, with the Rookie of the Year when it came on. I was like, let me make sure that it doesn't have that on there.
Yeah.
But the next one of the next things that we're going to be reviewing, not next week but the week after, is We Bought a Zoo, and I was like, okay, we're
Oh.
still in the clear here because it doesn't have that on there. Patrick and I are going to be talking about that one. But I also saw in here this movie, and I was like, oh my gosh, we should. Oh, nope, included with your
Oh.
Hulu subscription. Again,
Oh.
it's because again
Shame. For
we're
shame.
sticking to the rule. It has to be a Disney Plus thing for us to review it. So
That would have been great.
so with that in mind, here's what's coming up on Deep in the Plus. We've got Muppet Treasure Island is something that Shannon and I talked about last week. We're talking about Rookie of the Year this week. Next week we're going to do a watch along because the Acolyte from Star Wars drops on next Wednesday. Desi and I will be doing a watch along with that, and then June 12th We Bought a Zoo, and then Shannon's back for Monsters University. And as you can see, Stitch is there waiting in the wings for 626 Day. Um, and a big shout out, thank you guys so much to our WIGS members. We love our WIGS, the WDWNT Interglobe Society. Thank you guys for being part of our family. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to patreon.com/WDWNT. Final note: last week we had Park Center on Sunday night, and Stephanie and Shannon and Pete Carney were hanging out with us. Annie talked a little bit about Universal. We would love for you guys to go check that out right now on WDWNT TV, and of course you can watch our next episode live this Sunday night at 9 p.m. So hopefully you join us for Park Center and Deep in the Plus while News Tonight is on hiatus, and we would love to have you hanging out with us in the chat. Thank you guys for hanging out tonight. We appreciate you. But here it is. This is the moment of truth. Are you ready, Stephanie? You chose this movie. You dressed up for this movie. But the question is, would you recommend this movie?
Absolutely, Rob. It's a grand slam. Hit it out of the park. I think you need to go see it, not just for your kids, not with, the little ones in your life, but just for a feel-good movie on a Friday night for yourself. Grab some popcorn, grab some Cracker Jacks, and sit down and watch it. It's a great show.
I'm a little uncomfortable with how many baseball terms you just throw out off the top of your head. That is that I mean, but that was a home run. That was fantastic. But I would agree. If you're looking for a family film, I think this is a good one. I think it stands up. It's 1993. It's 31 years ago, and I think it still is entertaining. I sat and watched it with my family tonight. They were a little bit hesitant to see it because I was like, "This is what I'm reviewing," and they're like, "Miss me with that." But then when I was watching it with them, they were I think pretty engaged in it. So I would say if you haven't seen it, it seems to be a cult classic. It seems to be one that some people get all dressed up for. And again, I don't know whether it was a coaching, I mean, not a coaching thing, but like a crush thing that got you involved with it in the first time. But it was a fun little movie. I mean, it had to be a crush thing. I mean, look at this kid. Come on. No wonder they
Cute.
wanted him in that Pepsi commercial. But you know what?
Oh dear.
Let us let us know what you think in the comments below. We would appreciate it. Check out anything that we've done. Over 200 reviews on deepintheplus.com. You can check them out at any time. Disney Channel originals to Disney classics, Pixar movies, and 20th Century Fox 1993 sports movies. It's all on here. So thank you, Stephanie, for reviewing this. I hope we can get you back, and it doesn't have to be for a kid in King Arthur's Court. It could be for something else. But I would love having you on. Thank you for being here. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.